Through bushes and through briars, I lately took my way, oh, for to hear the small birds sing and the lambs to skip and play, oh, for to hear the small birds sing and the lambs to skip and play. I overheard my own true love, her voice it was so clear. Long time have I been waiting for.
Hello, and welcome to the East Anglia Traditional Music Trust's Big Sky Traditions, for the last episode in our series documenting the Vaughan Williams Folk Project. It's been a busy time here at the Trust as we've been rounding up the young musician side of the project, which culminated in two absolutely amazing performances at Folkies 2023, as well as Traditional Music Day in Stowmarket, Suffolk. Throughout this podcast, all the music you will hear will be from these fantastic performances. Following these amazing electric performances, and now the dust has settled a little, I got in touch with both those running the project as well as those who participated to hear what the impact of it has been on their lives. First off, and in rather a beautifully cyclical way, I had the pleasure of chatting to Finn Collinson and Emma Beach, who led the mentoring and teaching of the young musicians, and got to hear their final thoughts on the project. What were your expectations going into this project?
It was a really interesting one for me because it was a completely new project, completely new group of people. Well, at the start we didn't even know who it was, so it was really exciting. It was kind of a big unknown. We had the bare bones set out, and where it went from there was a big mystery. So it was really exciting to see something kind of develop and unfold when at the start nobody could predict what that would be.
I had hopes that we'd managed to take the music somewhere new and exciting, and I think that was my main ambition as we went into this project. And I think our task as we went through was to kind of figure out how to realise that and how to sort of guide the musicians to achieve that. And I think we got there, but I think the big thing that we both felt at the start of the project is we had to be able to just adapt to what was happening as the project went on. And you know, there was no grand plan on day one. It was quite an organic kind of natural process of figuring it all out.
So do you think there's a little bit of nerves behind it going into it? Because obviously this is kind of, I don't know how much this has ever really been done before, and I know certainly you guys have done some teaching, but maybe not something like on this scale.
It was, for me, maybe Finn as well, I'm not sure, it was less nerves and more just kind of a bit of a excitement of what might come, really. Because it's, I think with music, like, yeah, it was a very different project, but I think lots of the stuff that we do, you turn up on day one and what's going to happen is a bit of a mystery, which is super exciting, I think. So yeah, that kind of intrigue.
And did you have any inkling that it would have kind of finished in the place it did when you started out?
I was hopeful that it would, but we didn't know what was going to happen, really. I think as soon as we got the group together in the room for the first time, we sort of had that realization of, yeah, there's something really cool that could come out of this, you know. And you know, as soon as we had even the application videos in the first place, we were like, okay, we've got some really serious musicians, some fantastic talent, but not just the talent, it's the ideas and the inspiration behind all of that, I think, that was so crucial to the success of this. What we were hoping for as we went in was to have a good performance at the end of it, and I think we had an excellent performance at the end of it, so that's got to be good, isn't it?
Were there any particular highlights just from the teaching and the mentoring phase? 'Cause there's a few times you guys, like, you all met up together and there's like the weekend away where you're sort of on the residential. Is there any particular moments that kind of stand out to you as being particularly significant?
I think for me it was the first day of the kind of workshopping the performance, because that was probably the time of the project when there was the most like apprehension, because we'd been all working on it in small groups, individually, mentoring sessions for months by this point, and we'd all only met once or twice. So there was quite a lot hanging on that weekend. We only had 2 days to put together this performance from what felt like kind of from scratch. But that first day was just so exciting for me because it all just happened, and everybody kind of came in and did everything so much quicker than we were expecting. There was so much support between all of the musicians, which I thought was lovely. In these things, it's always difficult. Everybody comes from different kind of backgrounds, different ages, and all of this. But for that group, it was more of an excitement, I think, because they were all learning from each other and supporting each other, and that was really, really nice to see.
I would pick out that workshop weekend as a highlight as well, for lots of the same reasons. Another highlight for me really was getting everybody to Folk East and being able to just kind of stand back and say, okay, we've done our bit now. The guidance that we've offered has sort of happened. We're able to just stand at the side of the stage and watch it, and it's quite a weirdly emotional thing. I was way more nervous for that than I have been for any of my own gigs for years, because when you've been involved in that capacity, you really want it to go well for them, and it did, luckily. So I had nothing to worry about.
Yeah, because that actually is one saying. How did you feel the performance went, guys? Like, particularly the Folk East one. How did you feel it went?
Oh, it was super. It was so good. It was such a pleasure to be able to kind of stand there and just listen, and just watch them all having a super good time and kind of take the music to a new place in lots of them. It was really interesting how different that performance was than all the run-throughs we'd done, which were all great as well. But it was really interesting to kind of see musically where they took that once they were up on a stage, and all the chat from them all in between was so interesting. I love seeing any musician, that not even in a teaching capacity, just any musician, like how they change when they go on stage. I find so interesting. So that was really cool to see.
Absolutely. Folk East is a festival and a place that holds a very special kind of importance for me personally, and to be able to share this performance at that festival was really, really special for me, kind of on a purely personal level. But in terms of the performance, as Emma was saying, these things just take on a new life as soon as they're on stage, and I see a lot of myself in that. I feel like I often become quite a different person when I'm on stage, and I kind of step into that performance persona, and to watch them do that, I was like, yeah, this is something I've experienced. Wonderful to see, and great music.
What do you think the impact of this project's been then on the young musicians, aside from this bonding that has happened, and this I don't know, yeah, like you say, it's a very special moment where it's not just 9 musicians, but it's like 9 musicians who actually flow together and kind of have this balance and this bond. What other impacts do you think this project as a whole has had on them as performers?
I think probably for everyone it's going to be quite different. I think there are, like you say, there are all these things that they'll all benefit from. But I think it was interesting chatting to them throughout. It's seeing lots of them being really interested in different music that other musicians within the group were playing. Like, we had people come from singer-songwriter, poppy backgrounds, bluegrass, folk, classical. Like, it was a complete mix of people in there. And I think whilst they all brought their strengths, they all brought things they wanted to learn as well. And I think people from different backgrounds were able to kind of fill that in for each other. So I think that's probably something they'll take forwards, hopefully.
And it's kind of an experience of working together in a situation like this as well. And I talk about being a folk musician because that's what I have experience of. But I think being a musician in any context, there's so much spontaneity in any musical, and it's not just music, of course. It across the arts, it's just being able to respond to a situation that you're in and adapt based on the other people that are there. And I hope I really hope that they've all gained a little bit of experience of that. Even the people who have been in situations like that before, of which there were quite a few, I hope that this combination of musicians and the different backgrounds that, like Emma was talking about, the different backgrounds that they all came from, I hope that that has given a new perspective on working together collaboratively. And it's just even the little things that get said, little tips of how to make something more in time or more in tune or something like that, or those tiny little moments. Those are the things that you wouldn't necessarily write down as a big list of achievements at the end of a project like this, but they are massive achievements in their own little ways. And I found myself, as you know, I think I've said this to you before, even from the very first workshop, I found myself pinching little bits that were said, little ideas, and using it in my own playing, my own teaching. So it's a two-way process.
What was the personal impact of teaching and mentoring and running this big project, particularly as part of the Vaughan Williams Folk Project? Kind of what's the personal impact been on you?
I think the big thing for me has been kind of responding to different musicians from different backgrounds again, and that has been something that I've found to be quite a challenge in the past, in terms of looking at my experience and being able to convey things to musicians from my perspective, but also being able to put myself into someone else's shoes and look at how they're kind of seeing an idea or experiencing a bit of music, or where their thought process is coming from. I think having these 9 musicians from such different musical backgrounds has forced me to think a lot about the way that I communicate as a teacher, as a leader, and how to best support people using my experience, but also in a way that will be helpful and relevant to people from all sorts of different backgrounds.
Almost off the back of what Finn just said, I think also in those situations when people are all coming from different backgrounds, there are always going to be points in the day at which you hit like I wouldn't even call it a bump, just a moment that needs some more attention. And I thought in that moment, it's so important to have so many different ways to work on an idea, because not everything works for everyone. And one of the best things in that moment was when, instead of trying to fix it or any one person step up, teacher or person participating in the project, instead of one person trying to step up and fix the problem, the best thing to do is to find a way to open it out to the whole group and get everyone's input, because probably someone will say one thing and then it just clicks, and at that point it works. So I think, the importance, obviously group collaborations always involve everybody, but I think the importance of when you hit a snag or a bump, instead of just ramming at it, just open up, take a step back, see what every single person has to say, and you'll find a solution. That was probably the biggest thing I took.
Alongside chatting to them, I also managed to catch up with a few of the young musicians and hear about their experience of taking part in this project and the way it's shaped their artistic practice, as well as the way they think about the folk music collected by Vaughan Williams.
I'm Ollie. I play the whistle, and I got involved in the project initially because I wanted to do some collaborative work and learn more about kind of archived material and create something from it that was kind of new and slightly fresh. Yeah, whilst working with other people.
So my name's Abby Thomas, and I've been playing mandolin with the Vaughan Williams Project.
Hi, my name's Peter. I've been a performer within the Young Vaughan Williams Project.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and I've been part of the Vaughan Williams Folk Song Project. I play alto with soprano saxophone and played both in a variety of different pieces that I wrote and also some of my fellow musicians.
What were your expectations going into this project? Like, what did you think was going to happen?
So I wasn't entirely sure to begin with what was expected or what was going to happen. But apart from that, we're going to be working with material from Vaughan Williams, but like kind of in what shape, what form, I really didn't know. But yeah, it was great to listen to all the other instruments on the first day when we got together and like just hear what was kind of possible in terms of the sound and the music. And then, yeah, from there had a really good like base to kind of work from.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you have much experience with like folk music and that sort of thing? Obviously, you're a folk musician, but what was your experience in terms of like playing? What kind of settings had you played in before coming into this project?
So I hadn't really played any settings really per se. Like hadn't really played any. Hadn't really performed in front of audiences much, and that's why I wanted to get involved and do some of that. Whilst working with other people, but yeah, it's something that I've always done, kind of quite sort of solo for myself because I enjoy it. And only until kind of last year I started taking it a bit more seriously and thought, yeah, it'd be nice to actually do some performing. So that's what led me into the project, really.
So when I came into this project, I was really looking forward to meeting other musicians from around the country who were really into folk music. I felt like I kind of met people who were into bluegrass, which is what I used to play, but I wanted to meet more people that were interested in British folk and have more people that I could collaborate with and work with. And I was also really excited about working with Finn and Emma and having the tutoring for the project and about working with archived material in some way. And I was looking forward to having a chance to exploring that a bit more, but I guess like not really being able to visualize exactly what it would kind of look like.
I kind of just wanted to meet other musicians that have done folk music because I've done some in the past, but possibly not as much as some of the others. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to kind of meet other musicians that have done lots of folk or not as much, I don't know, and just kind of be able to collaborate because I love working with other people my age and just, I don't know, be able to share ideas and just create something that we could then perform at the end in like a really nice space.
So did you have any goals that you wanted to achieve during this project, but kind of just at the beginning when you were setting out?
I mean, at the beginning, I'd still only been about 9 months into playing guitar, so it was more just a case of figuring out what it was that I wanted to do. As my main goals, sort of just figure out chord progressions and stuff and try and follow along with, say, Sarah, the other guitarist in the group, trying to follow along with what she was doing. But then as it progressed, I managed to sort of find my own path with it and obviously got better at guitar in general. So I was able to make my own chord progressions instead of following them.
I guess just to create a finished like piece or arrangement that I was proud of in the end and to then perform it with the other people. And I think I'm proud of what I achieved. So I feel like I've, done that.
And I'd love to know, like, what were those early sessions like when you first got together?
Yeah, the early sessions they were quite intense because the earliest session that we had that was all together, in person was like the 2-day weekends of full day rehearsals. So it was quite intense of like, you've only just really started to get to know each other and have Zoom calls where you're chatting and like WhatsApp group chats where you're talking about the project. And now like you're playing this music together for like 8 hours and you're like hardcore zoning in on parts that aren't working and things. But it was good. It's good working with people from different backgrounds and with different levels of experience in it as well. It's really good being able to get used to how different people like to work. And some people in the project were working really heavily with sheet music, which isn't something that I usually do. So that was, I think I've done that a few times before, and it's always a good chance to get more used to working with it as someone who doesn't really read it. Like I've kind of found some good quote unquote like kind of workarounds for it, and ways of making that work well for me as well. But then it was also like hearing this material for the first time and hearing what people had put together was really exciting and like quite invigorating, and like to hear that we'd all been given essentially the same brief of information to work from and the different directions everyone had taken it in was really interesting.
And during like the kind of the teaching phase and the mentoring phase, is there anything that kind of any particular moments that stand out for you, any particular highlights?
To be honest, just the whole thing, like Finn and Emma are always so helpful, and like had so many good ideas. Like when we had our online mentoring, they'd always come up with so many different ways like to experiment with what I was doing, and they were just always so supportive. And yeah, I don't know, just all of it.
You said coming into this, you were keen to play with other musicians. During like the teaching phase of this, did you find that moment where the spark happened and you were like, oh no, this is great, this is what I was looking for?
Yeah. So I think when we all came in for the July workshop with all our individual pieces and everything, and I had a vague idea of what I sounded like with my instrument. I really didn't have much of an idea because I'm not sort of academically inclined with writing, notating music or anything else, what things might actually end up sounding like. So to like play it through kind of after a couple of times and hear it really, like it didn't take very long at all to get it like sounding really tight, I thought, the tune I played, that I came up with. So that was really like quite special, yeah. And it sounded amazing, I thought. Because I'm just not used to that.
How did you feel the performances went? Folk East and East Anglia Traditional Music Day?
So it was really, really fun to play at Folk East. I think that might be my first performance at a folk festival, actually. And it was certainly my first like that, working with lots of musicians in that way. It was a really unusual type of performance to be a part of anyway. And it was really, really exciting, and it was so much fun. It felt like it went really, really quickly. And I did feel quite nervous through it about like remembering, particularly for me, it's always about remembering the lyrics and things. But really just enjoyed it and came off feeling really, really enthused and really happy with how it had gone. And yeah, it was nice to form that bond with all the people we were working together with. And then to have that chance to perform and all come off and experience that kind of high together.
Yeah, I thought they went really well, actually, on the whole. It's always like nerve-wracking right before, but once you get into like the swing of it and the groove and everything, it's fine. I thought the bigger audiences would kind of bother me, but it didn't. Once you're up there, it was mainly just prior to the event, really. But they went really well.
And I guess was it your first big performance?
Yeah, Folk East was my first performance ever.
Ever?
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been a pretty big experience then for you, man.
Yeah. That's why I said like I've still been kind of processing it, I think, for a few weeks afterwards, because it's kind of crazy, but yeah.
How did you feel the performances went?
Really well, yeah. I'm really pleased with how they both went. And it's always really nice having like the audience feedback to you, like after each piece. Like they really seem to be enjoying it, which I feel made us all kind of play better and really like enjoy the whole thing.
Yeah, and was there any nerves before going on stage?
A little bit, but I really like performing. Like I like having the audience there, so it was kind of like excited nerves, and just excited to kind of show what we've been working on for the past few months.
What has the impact been for you and your creative practice by being a part of this project?
I think a lot of it, like I've gained from this, is definitely being able to incorporate new instruments that I wouldn't have previously thought, like a flute or a violin. I wouldn't have probably added into any music of mine. Whereas now I'm trying very hard to try and find people my age that I can do that with now, because I do quite enjoy the sound of it made and stuff.
So I would definitely feel a lot more confident working with archived material now, which is great because it was one of the aims that I came into the project with. I feel like I've got good approaches, and I feel like I had some of those approaches before, but I've got a good confidence that they'll lead to a good outcome now. Like I've seen it kind of happen, which is really nice. I guess like tangibly, I also feel like I've got lots of nice people I can work with now and people I can call on for ideas as well, which is good. I think that the style of material that I ended up creating from the archives is something that I'd like to work more on, that kind of material in the future. And the piece that I wrote, well, not wrote, but I kind of heavily edited from it, was really quite weird, like, and in a way that you might not necessarily hear on first listen. But it had all sorts of weird timings in and things like that. And it was nice to know that working in that way isn't unachievable for people around you either, because sometimes that can be like, oh, I wonder if I should just straighten this out and make it a bit easier to work with. So it was really nice for that. I felt like I learned a bit more about the sort of stagecraft element of it, especially for slightly different performances, and like having guests come in and speak about it, particularly when Stu came in. I remember him talking about, oh, the audience really responds well to this, or they really like it when you do this. If you create a bit where they can clap along and then someone claps along to show that, then they'll really respond well. And those are things that are different in the folk industry to in the bluegrass industry in a way. Like, I don't know that we really think about it so much as like, how would the audience react? And I guess you have a slightly different audience in folk in like British folk to what you have in bluegrass. So I think those things will be really useful to me, like professionally going forwards as well.
I think it's made me more like creative in a way, and thinking of how you can really make a piece, like keep it the same, or not the same, but kind of keep it true to itself, but experiment it and kind of make it your own at the same time. And it's really interesting to see how all the different musicians kind of did that to make the piece that they chose their own, and just and taking also what the others have done and kind of thinking, oh, maybe I could do that now because I hadn't thought of it. So yeah, that was really good.
So obviously one of your goals was being able to maybe do some more performing. How are you feeling now the project's over? Are you feeling sort of in a place where you can go forwards with that?
Well, yeah, so it was, for me, it was a little bit of like a baptism of fire. I think I handled it fairly well, but I kind of feel a little more confident now that I could do other stuff that's probably not quite as big as this. You can sort of, and that would be quite fine to do that. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to trying to get out there and find other things to do.
Without being part of this project, do you think you necessarily would have been where you're at now with kind of your thoughts on music and performance?
Yeah, so I think like things like this as well are quite good to basically force me to force me into action a little bit. So I think if I wasn't, I may well just be kind of in the same place. Saw this time last year or whenever it was. So yeah, it's kind of forced me in a good way to improve and get better and more confidence and all that.
What do you think Vaughan Williams would have thought of your piece?
Oh wow, that is such a difficult question to answer. Well, I really don't know actually. I think that Vaughan Williams probably would have listened to my piece and thought, this isn't what I collected. And, I don't know. I mean, I guess I hope that he'd like it and think, oh, that it's maybe if he listened to it within the context of it's been quite a long time since he collected it, and think, oh, it's interesting that, you know, this material's been taken in a different direction, and that, because he collected the material so it could inspire and influence the work that he was creating in the classical sphere. So I guess it's nice to think that it's inspiring and influencing creation of material in a way, because I put together two pieces that were very separate in his archives, and I edited them in ways that were very different to how he collected them. So maybe I hope that he would be happy to hear that it had inspired new material in that way as well.
I can honestly say it has been a pleasure to be able to be a part of this project and document not only the amazing work of the young musicians, but also that of everyone else who has been involved in this huge project that has reached literally thousands of people. Watching the final performance at Traditional Music Day, I must admit part of me was a little mournful that the project had reached its conclusion. However, I did have to remind myself it is not completely over yet. Alongside all of its in-person work, there's a huge resource library that is still growing, where songs, lyrics and teaching materials can be found, all on the East Anglia Traditional Music Trust website that is linked in the description. And of course, as with all traditional music, there never is a true end to it, as with each passing generation, these songs and stories are gifted onwards, something which was greatly helped by Vaughan Williams and his folk song collecting. And don't despair, as this podcast will continue. We will in fact have 2 more bonus episodes coming up, one telling the story of more Melodians and the other featuring an interview with myself and the project organisers at Folk East, where we are all giddy from the excitement of the first performance. Till then, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.
In the trees I'm homeward bound, with an instrument held in my hand, lacing harmonies from all around. To share in a song makes a home anywhere. With a tune I'm homeward bound. 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 With a tune I'm homeward